Welcome to Buddhism Seeds. Perhaps you've walked through many paths, tried many ways to heal. People have told you time will ease the pain. Stay busy and it will fade. Keep moving forward and your scars will heal themselves. But if that were true, why do you still lie awake at night? Why does an old memory still tighten your chest, even when everything seems fine on the surface? Why does a corner of your heart still feel untouched, unseen? The truth is, healing doesn't come from forgetting. It doesn't come from trying to get over it as if pain were an enemy. Healing begins only when you stop running. When you pause, sit down, and look deeply. Tonight you don't need to be strong. You only need to be present with yourself. You only need to open your heart gently enough to listen. What you're about to hear is not a bedtime story. It's a mirror reflecting the path that countless monks and practitioners have walked. A path that doesn't erase suffering, but transforms it into compassion, wisdom, and unconditional peace. As you listen, the noise in your mind will soften. The tension in your body will slowly release, and the wounds you thought would never heal will begin to melt away. Let tonight be your return home. No more pretending to be okay. No more hiding your exhaustion. No more believing you have to face everything alone, because you have never been truly separate. The pain you carry is part of the vast tapestry of this universe, and the moment you see this truth, loneliness begins to dissolve. You are safe enough to stop, strong enough to soften, awake enough to begin healing, not by force, but through awareness. Take a deep breath. Exhale slowly, and let us begin. There is a common misunderstanding when people hear the word emptiness in Buddhism. They think it means nothingness, a cold void, a loss of all meaning. But the truth is the complete opposite. Emptiness is not the denial of life. It is the insight that reveals the infinite interconnection of all things. To understand shunyata, emptiness is not to lose anything. It is to find freedom, compassion, and the deepest peace within yourself. In Buddhist teaching, emptiness does not mean non-existence. It means that nothing possesses a fixed, separate, or independent self. Everything you see, touch, and live with exists only through interdependence. A flower cannot bloom without sunlight, rain, soil, and the gardener's care. Look deeply, and you will see the cloud, the sun, the earth, and time inside that flower. So the flower is not just a flower, it is the gathering of countless conditions. That is why the flower embodies emptiness. It has no isolated essence, yet in that nothing, everything is contained. Emptiness is not void, but boundless fullness. When you no longer cling to the notions of me, mine, or it must be this way, you begin to see others within yourself. You live with compassion, with understanding, with freedom. Your mind becomes not only still, but vast and clear like the sky. All suffering begins with attachment. You cling to the one you love, to an ideal image of yourself, to thoughts, emotions, expectations, believing that holding on will bring you peace. But in truth, the clinging is what makes you suffer. It's like a rope you tighten around your own neck. The harder you hold, the less you can breathe. To see through emptiness is to realize that nothing truly belongs to you. Everything arises and passes within the flow of conditions. The person you love, the feelings you have, the situation you live in, all are changing moment by moment. Letting go does not mean becoming cold or indifferent. It means seeing clearly the impermanent, non-possessive nature of all things, and thus you no longer demand that life obey your will. You stop forcing others to make you happy. You stop needing to prove you are right. And in that release, you discover freedom. Those who live with the insight of emptiness don't struggle to be someone. They no longer carry the burden of must be right, must be better, or must hold on. They flow like water, flexible, formless, unconfined. That very fluidity is true wisdom. In the light of emptiness, every experience, even suffering, has its rightful place. Pain is no longer an enemy to destroy, but a teacher to learn from. When you stop resisting pain and begin to see it as a teacher, you discover it is the very doorway to understanding. The Buddha once said, "Suffering is the path to enlightenment. Without darkness, there is no knowing of light. Without wounds, there is no lesson in compassion." In meditation, when pain arises in the body or in the heart, we do not push it away or run from it. We do not label it too quickly. We simply sit and observe, like someone sitting by a riverbank watching the water flow. And in that still observation, the sense of I am suffering begins to dissolve. Only sensations remain appearing and disappearing. No holder, no fighter. Modern psychology agrees pain does not dissolve by avoidance. It is released through awareness. When you face it fully, what unfolds is not breakdown, but breakthrough. Your mind grows more spacious, more compassionate, and you begin to see what once hurt you is now the mirror guiding you home. One of the most beautiful signs of someone who truly understands emptiness is how they love. They love freely, not out of fear. They know the other person is not mine, but a meeting of conditions, a companion for learning and awakening, who may one day move on when the conditions end. Many love deeply, but hurt each other greatly, because their love is tangled with attachment. The more they fear losing, the more they control. But control kills love. When you demand that someone make you feel safe, both hearts become suffocated. Even a golden cage is still a cage. When you see that no one truly belongs to anyone, love becomes light as the wind. You can love fully, offer your presence completely, yet still leave space for freedom. No need to hold, no need to prove, just to be there and let the other be. Love through the lens of emptiness is love through understanding, to care without control, to be close without dissolving into each other. Such love brings peace not only to the other, but also to yourself. Because you no longer love from fear, you love from wisdom. Many think letting go means losing. But in Buddhism, letting go is not giving up life, it is releasing illusion. When you see that everything is interdependent and selfless, you no longer cling to outcomes. You still live, act, and love, but without being bound by expectations. Just like in meditation, you don't force yourself to be calm. You simply observe the mind restless, or still, and let it be. True calm appears only when you stop striving for it, because must be calm is still a form of attachment. Those who live with emptiness carry a natural grace. They don't need to prove their virtue or wisdom. They simply are, and in that simplicity, wisdom and compassion shine through. In meditation, emptiness is not an abstract theory. It is experienced directly through observing non-self in every breath, every sensation. When you sit quietly, breathe gently, and observe your inner movements, you see feelings arise and fade, thoughts appear and vanish, none of them truly you. The angry mind calms. The sad mind softens. The confused mind clears. Everything comes and goes like waves, and you are the one who sees without being swept away. Modern psychology calls this de-identification. You stop saying, "I am anger" or "I am sadness," and instead anger is present, sadness is arising. That small shift opens a vast space inside. You are no longer controlled. You are the observer. In Buddhism, this is mindfulness and clear awareness. To see a thought without grasping, to feel an emotion without clinging, is to live close to emptiness itself. Because emptiness is not somewhere else, it is the pure knowing awareness that grasps nothing. From this awareness, wisdom arises quiet, deep, liberating. You may ask, how do I apply emptiness in daily life? The answer is not in lofty theories, but in the simple, ordinary moments where your mind usually reacts out of habit. When someone says something harsh, instead of reacting with anger or hurt, pause, take a breath, and note. A feeling of discomfort is arising. No need to analyze, no need to strike back, just notice. In that moment, you are free, no longer a victim of words. When you face loss, whisper softly within, "Nothing truly belongs to me." Everything comes and goes by causes and conditions. This isn't denial, it's a return to truth. And from that truth, a deeper peace grows. When you love with understanding, don't ask, "What can I get from them?" Ask instead, "What do they need to suffer less?" That question awakens compassion. And when you love without demand or control, both hearts can breathe freely, and you live in true freedom. Emptiness is not abstract. It is the vision that allows you to live lightly, clearly, and untangled. Through these small moments of awareness, you begin transforming your whole life. Emptiness doesn't make you cold, it makes you warm, because you are no longer separated by a small self. Seeing that everything depends on everything else, gratitude naturally arises. You start to cherish every breath, every flower, every moment. To understand emptiness is not to speak wisely, but to live gently. To live unbound by the past, not pulled by the future. To live like a cloud, coming and going, yet always free. When you look deeply, observe your mind, and breathe mindfully, you begin to see that even your body carries the imprint of the mind. The aches, the fatigue, the heaviness are places where karma has left its trace. When people hear the word karma, most imagine something invisible: actions, words, or thoughts that lead to future consequences. But in truth, karma does not exist only in the mind. It is etched into your body, every cell, every breath, every muscle fiber, quietly recording the emotional history you have lived through. Unprocessed sadness, unresolved anger, unnamed fears, all of them are stored within the body, with an honesty that may surprise you. Have you ever noticed why whenever you feel stressed, your shoulders tense as if carrying a stone? Why fear feels like weight pressing down on your chest? Why remembering someone from the past makes your stomach twist for no reason? These are not random reactions. They are karma imprints of emotions that were never seen clearly. In Buddhism, this is one form of bodily karma, one of the 3 types of karma: body, speech, and mind. But bodily karma is not just the actions you perform. It also includes the body's unconscious reactions to mental patterns that have not been healed. When you hold back tears, your muscles tighten. When you swallow anger, your jaw locks. When you cannot forgive, your body freezes. Your body becomes a living scripture where karma is recorded line by line. If the mind is not heard, the body will speak for it. And only when you sit down, breathe, and observe yourself with full presence will the layers of karma begin to unfold, to be seen, understood, and released. The mind can justify, reason can deceive, but the body never lies. If you have lived through deep trauma, even if your mind has forgotten one similar situation, can trigger your body before your thoughts can catch up. Your heart races, breath quickens, palms sweat, throat tightens. No one taught you these reactions your body remembered. Modern psychology calls this body memory. In Buddhist psychology, it is the store consciousness, the place that holds all seeds, bija of emotions, memories, and experiences. When a seed has not been recognized with mindfulness, it keeps resurfacing not only in thought but through very real sensations in the body. The Buddha taught, if you are not mindful, karma will repeat itself in many forms you do not recognize. The most visible form is the body carrying old pain. You may feel chronic tension in the shoulders, stiffness in the neck, tightness in the chest or stomach without any clear medical reason. These are not just physical symptoms. They are karma knocking on your door. Transformation cannot come from intellect alone. You must return to the body, listen to it with mindfulness, and allow unhealed memories to dissolve in awareness. I once met a woman who could not lift her head for years. Doctors found no injury, no bone problem. But during deep meditation, she broke into tears. She realized that since childhood, her emotions had always been dismissed. Whenever she tried to express herself, she was silenced with words like, "Don't be dramatic." Eventually, she learned to lower her head literally and figuratively. Her bowed head was not illness. It was pain unacknowledged. Her body carried karma for her heart. When you are not allowed to speak, your body stiffens to endure. When you are not allowed to cry, your muscles contract to contain it. When you are not allowed to be angry, your breath becomes heavy and uneven. You may think you have moved on, but the body never forgets. Each time something touches an old wound, the same physical reaction returns proof that emotional karma still lives within. The Buddha said, if you wish to transform, observe where it arises. And the clearest place of arising is the body. When your breath quickens, the mind is unsettled. When your heart pounds and face flushes, an old seed is surfacing from the store consciousness. So let your body become the most honest mirror of your mind. When you observe your body with mindfulness, just seeing, just breathing, just knowing, you begin the true path of healing. Sometimes liberation doesn't come from logic, but from one deep breath of awareness and release. Your body doesn't need explanations. It only needs to be heard. Mindfulness is not only sitting with eyes closed, it is returning to the body with full presence, without definition, without analysis, simply noticing. You can practice like this. Sit quietly without forcing the mind. Simply notice what your body is saying. Where is there tension? Where is there ache? Where do you avoid awareness? Bring your breath to that area. Just place gentle attention and breathing there without trying to change anything. Observe the sensation like a wave. Does it have a shape? A color? Does it move? As you observe, you step away from "I am in pain" and into a sensation is here. Do this for just a few minutes a day, and you'll notice something remarkable. Some pains dissolve without medicine, some wounds ease without words. Because the act of seeing with mindfulness is the strongest medicine of all. The real danger is not that you are in pain, but that you don't even know you are. Or worse, that you have grown so used to pain you think it's normal. Some carry stiff shoulders of responsibility their entire lives without ever asking, "What am I carrying?" Some go through the journey of being mothers, wives, or achievers without once truly exhaling and letting go. The Buddha did not teach us to change circumstances to end suffering. He taught us to change the way we relate to body and mind. When you turn inward, noticing the body's tension, the broken rhythm of breath, the tired heart healing, begins in that very moment. Your body ceases to be a container of karma and becomes a sanctuary of understanding. Imagine your body as a stream. If you keep letting debris flow in unseen thoughts, denied emotions, the water will stay muddy. But if you bend down, look into it, and gently remove each branch and leaf, the water will become clear again. Transformation doesn't need to begin with something grand. It can start with one slow breath, a light touch to your shoulder, and one simple question. Am I hurting without knowing it? I am not saying you must meditate 2 hours a day to transform pain. You can pause even for 2 minutes. After a heated argument, after a stressful meeting, or right before sleep, pause. Close your eyes. Ask your body, is there any place in me that's speaking right now? If your shoulders are tense, release a little. If your back aches, breathe gently into it. If your chest feels tight, place your hand there. Not to fix, not to change, just to recognize. In that small act, you give your body permission to tell the truth, a truth that needs no words, no reasoning, only to be heard in silence. And once the truth is heard, it no longer needs to scream. Your body no longer needs illness to call for attention. Your mind no longer needs to shout for acknowledgement. You begin to realize what you need is not escape from karma, but understanding of it. To understand karma does not mean analyzing every wound. It means sitting beside it as a friend, unhurried, non-judging, allowing it to be, even for 2 minutes. Because sometimes 2 minutes of true presence is deeper than 2 hours of restless meditation. And sometimes one breath that touches the place your body holds can open a space where karma dissolves not through force, but through gentle awareness. Your body is not merely the house of your spirit. It is a map. On it are footprints of karma every time you stayed silent when you wanted to speak, every time you held back tears, every time you shrugged instead of stepping away. Each left a faint mark. If you listen, you will see. If you sit, you will understand. And if you understand, you will begin to release. When you release not through reasoning, but by accepting your body as an old friend, true healing begins. But there is one more truth. Healing cannot begin if you keep blaming yourself for being wounded. That is why this journey must continue with one essential step: compassion for yourself. Among all the people you've ever tried to love, care for, and forgive, perhaps there's one person you've unintentionally forgotten yourself. I'm not talking about the selfish ego, the part that wants to win, to be right, to be adored. I'm talking about the most fragile and vulnerable part inside you, the part that was once rejected, suppressed, and pushed aside because you thought, this part of me doesn't deserve love. We often find it easier to love others than to love ourselves. Easier to forgive others than to forgive ourselves. But the Buddha once taught, no one is more deserving of your compassion than yourself. And in the journey of healing, in every effort to let go and transform, no step is more profound than learning to become a true friend to your own mind. When you know how to listen to yourself, when you can be gentle with your own weakness, when you stop demanding that you be strong all the time, that is when healing begins. Not from the outside, but from deep acceptance within. You may have heard people say, be strong. It sounds positive, but often that pressure to be strong becomes the first act of self-cruelty. Some wounds don't need anyone else to cause them. You hurt yourself with the thoughts you repeat in silence. It's nothing, just move on. Why am I so weak? It's my fault. I deserve this. At first, they're just passing thoughts, but repeated enough, they become invisible sentences of judgment, not helping you heal, only draining you. The most frightening part is that you start to believe them. In Buddhism, the practice of metta-loving kindness does not begin with others. It begins by sitting down, turning inward, and speaking words you've never had the courage to say to yourself. May I be peaceful. May I be free from suffering. May I live with an open heart and a clear mind. No need for intense emotion. No need for perfect surroundings. Just presence. And those blessings, like gentle water, begin to soften the driest places within you. The ones long abandoned, hardened, or feared. Practicing metta is not about doing something to feel better. It is a simple but profound act, choosing to stop judging yourself and to stand by your own side like a friend. When you can sit with yourself without trying to fix, without trying to prove strength, you are already beginning to heal in the truest way. And from that place, real strength blossoms not as armor, but as the quiet power of someone who knows how to be kind to themselves. Many people say, I know I need to forgive myself, but I can't. They try to force forgiveness as a duty, another item on the checklist of self-improvement. But forgiveness doesn't arise from reasoning. It arises when the heart becomes soft enough, when it's wide enough to embrace even the parts of you you once despised. Think of compassion as sunlight. It does not choose where to shine. It warms everything, the hill blooming with flowers and the dry valley below. Forgiveness works the same way. It doesn't require you to be worthy, only present enough to see that every mistake came from something not yet understood, from a fear that had never been held. Maybe it's a part of you that was angry, ashamed, or pushed out of awareness because it seemed too bad. But when you dare to look without judgment, without running, you see that behind the behavior was loneliness. Behind the anger was a child who was never heard. The Buddha never asked us to be perfect. He taught us to see, clearly accept, and transform. In that process, you don't need to rush to forgive right away. You only need to stay with yourself without turning away. Then forgiveness will come naturally, not as something you do, but as something that blossoms on its own, like soft earth after rain, like a breath released after years of holding. Forgiveness in the end isn't about being worthy or unworthy. It's about freedom, because without it, you can't live fully in the present. And the present is the only door to peace. When you repeat metta, those blessings for yourself each day, what happens? At first, they might just feel like words. You might feel nothing, even awkward or fake. But be patient. Like planting a seed in the soil, the result doesn't come from instant emotion, but from gentle repetition. Each phrase, "May I be peaceful," "May I be free from suffering," begins to sink in not as sudden emotion, but as a quiet flame warming you little by little. You don't need to believe you deserve it. You only need to plant the seed by repeating, by being present. And one day, you'll notice you've softened. You no longer rush to self-blame. You no longer see yourself as something broken to fix. You can sit quietly with yourself, listening, not repairing. And in that space, real change begins not by force, but through awareness and acceptance. Practicing metta isn't about becoming someone better. It's about returning to the gentle heart that was once forgotten. In daily life, you can practice loving kindness right in the moments when pain first arises. You don't have to wait for meditation or peace. It's precisely when your heart is troubled that kindness is most needed. When you're disappointed in yourself, instead of tightening up to not feel it, pause and gently say, "I'm in pain, and I allow myself to feel it." This isn't surrendering to emotion. It's acknowledging the truth within you. When you've made a mistake, instead of falling into self-blame, take a deep breath and whisper, "I see my mistake, and I choose to learn from it, not punish myself for it." In that way, you transform error into understanding rather than turning it into a weapon against yourself. When you feel weary, simply place your hand over your heart, close your eyes and whisper, "May I rest in peace." No grand prayers, no perfect setting, just a small pause and a kind word. There is no fixed formula for metta. What matters is that you stop, look inward, and choose compassion instead of judgment. Each time you do, you are not only healing yourself, you are reshaping your inner world into one where kindness is real, alive, and embodied. Some fear that being kind to themselves will make them weak or indulgent. But that's a misunderstanding. True compassion is not softness, it is wisdom, clear and awake. Compassion doesn't say, "I didn't do wrong." It says, "I did. I see it clearly. I'll learn from it so it won't repeat. But I will not punish myself with anger, shame, or cruelty." Many believe they must be harsh to improve, that self-criticism drives progress. But it only creates fear and resistance. Real change happens when you dare to look honestly with eyes unclouded by judgment. The Buddha never said that loving yourself is indulgence. He said, to love is to see clearly. To see the roots of your behavior, perhaps fear, pain, or ignorance. And only through understanding can transformation arise, not through pressure, not through guilt, but through the deep seeing that brings gentle change. Self-compassion doesn't make you weak. It makes you strong enough to change without losing dignity. That is the path that endures. Modern psychology calls this practice self-compassion. Research shows that people who speak kindly to themselves recover from failure more easily, have better mental health, and love others more deeply. And this is exactly what the Buddha taught over 2,500 years ago. When your heart is full of loving kindness, you no longer need others to validate or forgive you, because you've learned to sit with yourself in peace and understanding. Metta. Loving kindness is not a state to achieve. It is a journey, a path you walk every day, little by little, through the simplest acts of daily life. Every pause, every gentle breath, every kind word to yourself, even the smallest whisper, is a seed of metta. You don't have to feel overflowing love right away. You don't have to open your heart in dazzling light. Sometimes it's enough just not to turn away from yourself anymore, and that alone begins the transformation. It might be a morning when you place your hand over your heart and say, "May I be peaceful." Or a quiet night when you whisper, "Today, I did my best. I allow myself to rest." Not to do it right, but to be present with yourself like a friend, like sunlight slipping through a crack in the door, like water seeping into dry soil. Loving kindness doesn't need noise. It needs patience, persistence, and honesty. And one day you'll realize you've softened without noticing, not because you forced forgiveness or love or positivity, but because you stayed with yourself, with your breath, with a heart learning to love without judgment. When you stop speaking to yourself with a judging voice, you open a new space, one where you can truly listen. In that space, wounds can be seen, mistakes can be transformed, and compassion can rise like the sun after a long night. And I believe this: those who learn to love themselves with compassion are the ones who can walk through suffering without being trapped by it. Because true healing is not about forgetting, not about feeling no pain, but about walking through the wound with awareness and no longer letting it imprison you. Many people have asked, how can I heal faster? How can I stop the pain, the longing, the guilt? Those are real and honest questions. Because once you begin the journey of transformation, what you want most is to be free from suffering as soon as possible. Who wouldn't want to feel lighter? Who wouldn't want to move beyond a painful phase quickly? But if you approach healing as a race to escape pain, that very effort becomes another form of suffering. The suffering of trying to get better fast. The suffering of believing that if I still hurt, I'm not good enough yet. The Buddha taught suffering is something to be understood, not something to run away from. That single sentence opens an entirely different direction. Healing is not about making pain disappear quickly. It's about learning how to move through it with a mind that is not drowned by it, a mind that does not rush to reject it, but dares to stay and see clearly. When you begin to look at pain as a friend that needs to be heard instead of a problem that needs to be fixed, that is when true healing begins, not through pressure, but through understanding and compassion. No rushing, no forcing, just steady steps back towards yourself. Some wounds cannot be measured by time. A year, 10 years, sometimes still not enough if your mind has not yet learned how to be truly present with the pain. On the other hand, some people need only a moment of deep seeing, and they can let go of years of burden from the past. Not because they are stronger, not because they are luckier, but because they chose to walk through, not around. Healing is not escaping emotion. It's not forcing yourself to stop hurting, stop missing, or be positive. Healing is the process of learning to live with pain consciously, to look at it without clinging or rejecting, to breathe with it to understand it, and to keep walking without deepening the old marks. Imagine walking through the rain. You're wet. There's no way to stop the water from touching your skin. But you don't freeze. You don't scream or run away. You just keep walking slowly, step by step. And eventually, the rain stops. Not because you did something special, but because you didn't fight the rain. Healing is the same. It doesn't ask you to get over it fast. It doesn't require you to be strong. It only asks that you stay with yourself to go through rather than avoid. And from that place where you no longer demand anything from your pain, light begins to enter. Gently, naturally, like sunlight after rain. There are things you will never forget, and you don't have to. Because the purpose of healing isn't to erase memory, it's to stop identifying with it. It means you no longer define yourself as the betrayed one, the abandoned one, or the failure. You still remember, but you no longer live as if that wound is the entirety of who you are. You are the one who sees it all, but is no longer defined by it. Psychology calls this trauma detachment. In Buddhism, it is the wisdom of non-self anatta, when you realize that emotions are simply waves passing through you, no longer need to push them away, delete them, or replace them with something positive. You just stand on the shore and watch. That's why in meditation, we don't suppress. We let sadness come. We invite anger to sit down. We don't silence the aching heart. We allow ourselves to breathe with the pain, to touch it with awareness. It is this light, the light of presence and understanding, that truly softens pain. Not time, not forgetfulness, not denial. Then one day you realize you can remember without choking up. You can tell the story without trembling. Because you know you are no longer that story. You are the one walking forward with an open heart and eyes that see beyond the fog of old identities. Why do some people go through years of therapy, countless retreats, endless healing books, and still feel the same pain inside? Because they are walking, but carrying with them the same beliefs about themselves, others, and life. They think I must stop being angry before I can forgive. They believe I must be strong and stable to deserve healing. But the truth is, healing doesn't begin with the effort to become someone else. It begins the moment you stop forcing yourself and dare to be present with yourself as you are. In the Buddha's teaching, this is clearly explained in the 4 foundations of mindfulness satipatthana. Contemplation of the body, kayanupassana. Return to the direct sensations of your body. Notice where it's tense, trembling, or heavy. Contemplation of feelings, vedananupassana. Acknowledge the emotion as it is sadness, anger, hurt without denial or pretending to be strong. Contemplation of the mind, cittanupassana. Observe your inner reactions, resistance, judgment, or avoidance. Contemplation of phenomena, dhammanupassana. See the impermanence, non-self, and interdependent nature of all experiences. Healing doesn't come from escaping emotions. It comes from walking through them with a mind that stays afloat. When you practice this daily, you learn how to stay with yourself without rushing to fix, without needing to be perfect. It's not a shortcut, but it is the truest path, because that path leads you home, not away from yourself. Be careful with the desire to find peace quickly. It sounds wholesome, but in reality, it's a hidden pressure. When you crave quick relief, your mind starts comparing, judging, and pushing. Why am I still hurting? Others have moved on. Why not me? Maybe I'm too weak. And so the wound that needs gentleness becomes heavier with expectation. The desire for peace instead of helping turns into a burden. It disconnects you from the present, from what actually needs your attention. Let your mind have space to breathe. Let your emotions have room to pass without being pushed. Like the earth that needs time to turn waste into flowers, the mind needs time to transform anger into understanding, pain into compassion. So instead of asking, "When will I be healed?" try asking, "Have I been gentle with my pain today?" Because what truly heals you is not when the pain ends, but how you treat the pain while it's here. When you learn to be present with each feeling, each trembling inside you, with unconditional acceptance, peace will come, not by schedule, not by pressure. It comes the way a flower blooms when the soil is soft enough. In meditation, you'll begin to see your mind as the sky. Emotions are clouds, sometimes dark, sometimes white, sometimes stormy, sometimes clear. But the sky itself never disappears. Healing begins when you shift from being the clouds to being the sky. You still feel sadness, still feel longing, but you are no longer those emotions. You can practice simply. Sit quietly. Place your hand on your chest or belly. Breathe in and recognize, this is sadness. Breathe out and whisper, I am here with this sadness. No analyzing, no pushing away, just presence. Do this, and you will move through each wave of emotion without being swept away. The Buddha said, all conditioned things are impermanent. This isn't just a philosophy. It's the key to healing the light that guides you through pain. When you're hurting, what doubles your suffering is not the pain itself, but the belief, this pain will never end. That belief traps you. You cling to the emotion, identify with the wound, and feel powerless. But if you look deeply, you'll see this pain too is changing. It comes, it stays for a while, then it goes. Like clouds crossing the sky, like waves washing the shore, nothing stands still. Impermanence is not just loss, it's the opportunity for transformation. When you understand that this anger, this longing, this hurt are all just phenomena that arise and fade, you no longer fear them. You don't rush to drive them away. You just breathe and watch until they dissolve on their own. From that insight, you move more lightly, no longer driven by fear, no longer held by the past, simply present, aware, and knowing that everything flows. That isn't coldness, that is freedom. You don't have to eliminate all emotions to be a good practitioner. You don't have to be peaceful all the time to be deep. The true depth lies in the one who can stay within pain and still keep the inner light of awareness alive. You are not a failure if today you still feel sad, hollow, or nostalgic. You are truly growing when you know you are sad and still choose to walk mindfully, still breathing, still observing, still not letting your mind be swept away. You are not weak because you still feel anger or hurt. You are strong when you no longer let those emotions decide how you live, when the past no longer blinds your view of the present. Sometimes, in the very moment you hurt but still breathe mindfully, still refrain from reacting, still hold compassion, that is when you are practicing the deepest Dharma, not to become better than others, but to become more true to yourself. And that is the first step of inner freedom, freedom from rigid standards, freedom from your own judgment, freedom to be fully human with both light and unhealed shadows. One day you will return to the place that once broke you and realize your heart no longer feels the same. That's when you know you've moved through without being trapped. You still remember, but you're no longer stuck. You can tell the old story, but with calm eyes and a gentle voice. No more strain, no more bitterness, no more blame. That is the sign of true healing. Your mind is free from the power of the past. Healing is not a race to find peace quickly. It is the process of living fully with every layer of pain and walking through it with compassion and understanding. You don't need to become someone else. You only need to be present with yourself long enough, deep enough, gently enough, and then you'll see the wound is no longer a prison. It becomes a path. You are no longer trapped inside it. You walk on lighter, wider, and only then will you understand something even more important. That because many people have never recognized the repetition of emotion, they think they've moved on. But in truth, they're still circling back to the same old pain. Have you ever noticed an emotion returning to your life again and again, even when you thought you had moved on long ago? Everything seems fine, you're calm, life feels steady, and then suddenly one careless word, A fleeting glance or an old memory rises up and anger flares. Sadness surges, pain breaks open as if it had never healed. You feel it's familiar, deeply familiar. You find yourself reacting the same old way, even knowing what's about to happen inside. And then you think, I'm still not good enough. But that's not true. It's not because you're not good enough. It's because you're not yet awake enough. Buddhism calls this phenomenon inner samsara, the cycle of emotional rebirth. It isn't the rebirth of a physical body, but the constant rebirth of mental states. Anger, jealousy, fear, loneliness, emptiness. They return again and again in different forms through different people in different situations, but their root is the same. You're not wrong when the emotion comes back. You just need to recognize that it has come back. And this time, instead of running away or blaming yourself, stop, breathe, observe, and gently ask, how many times has this emotion visited before? This time, can I stay without reacting? That alone begins to take you out of samsara, not through denial, but through the light of awareness deep enough to interrupt the spinning wheel. And right there, transformation begins. Many think samsara means the cycle of rebirth after death, lifetimes moving from one form to another. But the Buddha taught that samsara happens within every moment of living. You don't need to die to be reborn. You just need to be caught in an emotion, react out of habit, and repeat. And you are already in the wheel. Each time you get angry, then guilty, then regretful, then angry again, you have gone one round of samsara. Each time you love someone with attachment, get hurt, then love another. The same way you are still circling in emotional samsara. And that wheel won't stop spinning as long as you keep reacting instead of observing. As long as your mind pulls you from anger, to reaction from fear, to withdrawal from hurt, to closing your heart, samsara continues right here and now. Imagine a wheel that spins because of an axle. Emotional samsara spins because of its own axle, ignorance. Ignorance here means not seeing clearly the true nature of emotion. It means not knowing how to pause in the middle. It means thinking you're doing the right thing when you're only repeating the same old pattern. Only when you pause to look, really look, without chasing the feeling, but observing it. Like a wave does the wheel of samsara begin to slow. And for the first time, you are no longer being spun. You are awake, watching the wheel turn without being part of it. An emotion that isn't illuminated by mindfulness doesn't vanish. It may settle like muddy water sinking to the bottom, but it doesn't dissolve. It stays in the subconscious, waiting for the next chance to rise. Sometimes through a relationship, sometimes through work stress, sometimes even in meditation appearing quietly when you least expect it. That's why some people change environments, partners, jobs, yet the same suffering keeps returning. They think they're starting over, but they're only changing the surface while their inner reactions remain the same. Because healing cannot happen if you keep running from emotion. It cannot happen through forced optimism, new distractions, or burying the old. You must learn to stop, to look directly, to name the feeling I'm angry, I'm scared, I'm hurt, and most importantly, not to react immediately. The moment you can name an emotion without being carried away by it, the light of mindfulness has begun to enter. And from there, the emotion loses its power. You are no longer the victim. You are the one awake within the storm. The Buddha never said that anger is bad, or fear is bad, or sadness is bad. He only taught, do not let the mind become them. When anger arises, it's just a phenomenon of mind. If you see clearly, this is anger, and you breathe in, breathe out, observe without judgment. It will come and go like a cloud passing across the sky. But if you think I've been insulted, I can't forgive, I must react, then you become the anger. And when you become it, you react. Reaction creates karma, and karma fuels samsara again. There is a subtle form of samsara, not in explosive emotion, but in suppressed emotion. You think you've understood, you think you've moved on, but really, you just walked around the pain, never touching its root. You feel anger, then tell yourself, I shouldn't be angry. And so you suppress it. You cover the anger with a thin layer of calm. You withdraw, go silent, pretend to forgive, but the fire is still burning inside. Repression is not understanding. Control is not healing. You've only stepped back, and the emotion will return when you least expect it. That's overcoming with intellect, not insight. And that kind of overcoming leads you back into samsara again with the same anger, the same fear, the same wound, only wearing a new face. A true practitioner learns to see clearly without avoiding, not using moral labels to hide, not using beautiful words to cover unhealed pain. The Buddha taught, contemplate deeply into feeling. That is the path to liberation from suffering. There is no shortcut. No one can do it for you. Only when you dare to sit with yourself, breathe with your emotions, name your feelings, and observe without judgment, does understanding begin to sprout. And that is the first real step out of inner samsara. You may ask, how can I stop being pulled into emotional samsara? How can I stop repeating the cycle of anger, sadness, regret, and anger again? The first step is to stop. When a strong emotion arises, you don't need to do anything. No words, no reaction. Just be present. Try this. Take 3 slow, full breaths. Acknowledge the feeling. This is anger. This is fear. This is loneliness. Place your hand on the part of your body where it feels strongest: chest, belly, throat, shoulders. Whisper to yourself, this emotion is here, but I am not this emotion. That's all. But in that moment of stillness, you've done something immense. You've broken the chain of samsara. You didn't follow the old pattern. You didn't let emotion lead to reaction. You chose awareness. And each time you do that, a new path opens inside you, a direction without reaction, without wound upon wound, a space where you can watch emotions like clouds come and go, without mistaking yourself for them. That is the deepest practice of mindfulness in daily life. And from there, you are no longer someone living. Inside samsara, you are the one watching samsara with the eyes of wisdom. Scientists call this creating a pause between stimulus and response. When you pause, even for a few seconds, your brain shifts from the survival response to higher awareness, allowing conscious choice. Buddhism calls this the wisdom born of mindfulness. When you don't react immediately, you gain freedom. You are no longer the prisoner of emotion, you are the witness of how it moves. And when you see clearly, you can step out of the loop. Karma is not a rigid destiny. It's not a sentence you must endure. Karma is the result of how you respond to life moment by moment. Each time you refuse to react the old way, when you choose silence instead of anger, breathing instead of blaming, understanding instead of judging, you rewrite the story of your mind. You plant a new seed in consciousness, the seed of awareness, of compassion, of gentle wisdom. Samsara doesn't break through force or discipline. It fades when you choose to observe instead of react, to be still without retreating, to understand instead of judge. That is true practice. It doesn't require perfection, only honesty with your mind and courage to act differently. Because in the moment you choose differently, old karma stops and a new path opens from within. Some misunderstand and think to be awakened means to have no emotions, that the deeper you go on the path, the more unmoved you become. But that's not true. The Buddha himself shed tears seeing beings suffer. He felt sorrow watching his disciples stray from the path. But the difference was, he did not let emotions control him. He saw, he understood, and he responded with compassion and wisdom. You can do the same. On your path, you will still feel sadness, anger, longing, fear. You are human with a beating heart and living memories. But when you are mindful, you won't react out of habit. You won't let emotion dictate action. You will pause, breathe deeply, and observe the emotion like a cloud drifting through the sky of your mind. You will learn to respond with understanding, with mindful silence, not with impulsive reaction, because practice is not destroying emotion. Practice is learning to stay with it without losing yourself. The cycle of emotion, the inner samsara, is not a punishment. It is a message. Something within you is still waiting to be seen, heard, and understood. Emotions return not to hurt you, but to give you a chance to stop, a chance to look deeply, a chance to choose a new way. And you can begin right now. You don't have to wait for calm. You don't have to wait for a day without emotion. Right in the middle of anger, sadness, or unease, you can see the cycle and choose not to step into it. That's all it takes, and you are no longer inside samsara. And when you stop to observe emotion, you begin to see an even deeper truth. Most of what you believe, as I am hurt, I am. This way is just the story your mind keeps telling. Have you ever wondered why you react the way you do, even when you know you shouldn't? Why you still feel anger, even after everything has passed? Why an old fear, one you thought was gone, resurfaces whenever you face something similar? The answer lies in one word: karma. But karma is not blind fate. It's not you reap what you sow in a fixed sense. In the Buddha's teaching, karma is a chain of habits, actions of body, speech, and mind, repeated so many times that they become automatic. On the deeper level of consciousness, karma exists as Emotional memories that were never processed, never understood, never released. Each time you experience a strong emotion, hurt, jealousy, fear, anger, and you are not truly present to recognize it, the emotion doesn't disappear. It simply sinks deeper into the mind, into what Buddhism calls the storehouse consciousness, the place where all seeds are kept. The storehouse never forgets. It holds everything, every memory, every pain, every reaction you never fully understood. And every emotion not illuminated by mindfulness turns into a karmic seed, a latent imprint resting in the dark soil of the mind. These seeds don't vanish. They wait silently for the right condition to sprout. One day, it might take just a word, a glance, or a small situation, something that resembles a past memory, and that seed is activated. You find yourself reacting in the same way, even though the situation is different. You feel anger, fear, or unease without knowing why. That is karma manifesting through repeated emotional patterns. No one outside is truly making you suffer. It's the seed within you that has begun to stir. The Buddha taught, all karma can be transformed if we see it clearly at the moment it arises. This means that when you are fully present with an emotion, observing it in the light of mindfulness, without pushing it away, without labeling, without reacting, the old seed begins to dissolve. Each time you see clearly, a layer of karma becomes lighter. Each time you breathe with an emotion, instead of running from it, you are decoding the past right within the present. And that is the path the Buddha called liberation from the cycle of the mind. Just like an unhealed wound that still hurts at the slightest touch, your emotional reactions, anger, fear, doubt, hurt, are not innate flaws or weaknesses. They are consequences of experiences that were never truly seen or understood. When a child is constantly stopped from expressing emotions, that child grows up afraid to show sadness, afraid of being judged. That fear, if not illuminated by mindfulness, becomes an automatic reaction. It becomes karma. When someone has been betrayed, they often live with suspicion and self-protection. And without awareness, that distrust follows them through life, repeating in relationship after relationship. So whenever an old emotion returns, don't rush to blame yourself. Don't think I'm still not good enough. Instead, look at it differently. This is karma surfacing not to punish me, but to be seen, because only when you can see it clearly, without running or hiding, can you be free from it. That is what the Buddha called freedom through wisdom. The Buddha never said karma cannot be changed. He taught beings are the owners of their karma, the heirs of their karma, born from their karma. But he also said, whoever lives with mindfulness can transform old karma. This is deeply important. Because if karma is a chain of repeated reactions, then every time you don't react, as before, you interrupt that chain. For example, you usually get angry when criticized, but today, you don't react. You breathe in and breathe out. You just listen. No defense, no explanation. Simply present. That moment, though small, is a breakthrough in your karmic pattern. Karma doesn't dissolve instantly. but it weakens each time you respond with awareness instead of habit. Each time you act differently, you are rewriting your karma. Each mindful breath is a new line on the old page of karma. And gradually, your story is no longer written by the past, but created through presence. Most of us don't remember why we live the way we do. We don't recall when we began fearing closeness, or why we often feel angry or withdrawn. Because karma is preserved by ignorance, the unawareness of what's truly happening in the mind. Ignorance isn't stupidity. It is simply the lack of light, the absence of insight shining upon our own emotions and actions. The Buddha said, "Ignorance is the root of all suffering." And karma arises when ignorance repeats itself through action. The less you see clearly, the stronger your karma. The more mindful you become, the more karma dissolves. So each day you meditate, each time you pause to observe yourself, you shine a light into the deepest storehouse, the place that holds unspoken feelings, memories, and patterns. And once they are fully seen, they no longer need to rise from the dark. You don't need to fix yourself. Simply seeing yourself clearly. That is already transformation. You don't need to wait for a meditation hall to practice. Right in the middle of an ordinary day, while living your life, you can begin to transform karma. Whenever an emotion arises, anger, sadness, worry, jealousy, fear, don't react immediately. Pause for a breath. Ask yourself, does this emotion feel familiar? Has it appeared in me before? Then gently say to yourself, it has been here before, but today I will not react as I did before. Instead of judging yourself, breathe deeply. Instead of defending against others, listen fully, just once. And karma weakens a little, 10 times, and you'll feel it losing strength. And one day, you'll realize, I don't react the same way anymore. I have begun to be free, because karma doesn't dissolve through theory. It dissolves when you live differently, moment by moment. We often think of karma as something bad, as if it were punishment for wrongdoing. But the truth is, much karma doesn't come from malice. It comes from parts of you that were once abandoned. Parts that were unseen, unloved, misunderstood. The Buddha taught about metta, loving kindness, as a light that can melt karma. When you sit with your emotion, not suppressing, not denying, not rushing to identify with it, you are doing exactly what that forgotten part of you has always needed, to be loved through awareness. You don't need to force karma to dissolve. You don't need to fix yourself as if you were broken. You only need to understand, accept, and breathe with it. True healing comes from full presence, from a heart that doesn't condemn, from a breath that looks deeply. From that space, karma is not pushed away. It naturally melts like mist under sunlight. Psychology calls these repeated emotional reactions pattern memories. Neuroscientists explain that when you respond the same way over and over, your nervous system forms a pathway in the brain. But they also confirm the brain can rewire itself when you respond differently, and that requires conscious awareness. This is the modern language for what Buddhism calls transforming karma through mindfulness. Something miraculous happens when you see karma clearly. You stop fearing it. You stop blaming yourself for your repetitive reactions. You stop asking, "Why am I like this?" and quietly acknowledge, "This is an old road I've walked before, but I don't have to walk it anymore. I can stop. I can choose a new direction." Each conscious breath is a step away from the ruts of the mind. You are no longer dragged by momentum, but present like a mindful friend holding your own hand. And each time you place your hand on your heart and whisper, "I see you, my pain," you open a new path for yourself, a path without denial or rejection, a path illuminated by awareness and compassion. That is when karma ceases to be fate and becomes a known doorway back to inner freedom. Karma does not come to punish you. It comes to call you home. The emotions that repeat are not signs of failure. They are invitations to look within, to understand, and to release. And release does not mean to push away. It means to see the impermanent nature of emotion, to stop halfway through its pull, and to stay still without being carried away. You cannot change karma by fighting your emotions. You can only change it by staying with them in mindfulness and compassion. And sometimes, the only thing needed for karma to begin to dissolve is a moment of right silence. A silence not of avoidance, but of deep seeing, of gentle letting go. There are moments when your mind feels strangely loud, even though everything around you is quiet. And there are other times when in the middle of noise, you can feel a deep stillness within. That reveals something essential. Silence does not come from the environment. It is a quality of the mind itself. Many people believe that silence means not speaking, avoiding, or refusing to respond. But according to the Buddha's teaching, true silence is not the absence of sound, it is the presence of awareness. It is when you no longer need to answer every thought in your head, no longer need to interfere or fix anything. You simply see and allow everything to be as it is. We are often taught that to understand something we must think deeply, analyze, and reason it out. But sometimes the more we think, the more tangled the mind becomes. The harder we chase truth, the deeper we fall into the net of inner conflict. In the Buddha's teaching, there is a simple but easily forgotten reminder. Right wisdom does not arise from restless thought. True insight does not come from argument. As long as you carry the urge to win or lose, to prove right or wrong, you remain in the turbulence of the ego. And their wisdom cannot yet arise. Only when you stop, not out of frustration or weakness, but because you have seen the limits of thought without awareness, does the light of true understanding appear. It's like a lake. When the surface is disturbed, you cannot see the bottom. But when the water becomes still, it naturally reflects the sky. Your mind works the same way. Only when there are no more reactions or struggles for control can truth reveal itself clear, effortless, beyond reasoning. That is why wisdom does not come from what you try to think. but from the moment you exhale and simply see. Some people keep silent as a form of avoidance. They don't speak their thoughts, don't express their feelings, don't face what's happening within. But that kind of silence is not healing. It is freezing. It's like a locked door behind which lie emotions never processed, wounds never heard. The longer that silence lasts, the more suffocating the inner world becomes. Silence in Buddhism, however, has a completely different nature. It is the release of all attempts to control reality. You no longer insist that things must go your way. No longer whisper in your mind, "That shouldn't have happened," or "Why did they do that?" True silence is not avoidance. It is the stillness that arises from understanding. When you can sit with any emotion without pushing it away, without pulling it closer, without painting it with old judgments, you are practicing silence as a living meditation. That silence is not cold. It is warm because it contains the light of presence. It is not empty, but full, because you are completely here with what is. From that stillness, wisdom begins to arise, just as the lake reflects the sky when its waters are calm. Try pausing. You don't need to think more. You don't need to explain. Just sit and observe. That is how you stop being a victim of thought and become the one who sees it. And in that seeing you encounter a wordless truth, but one that is unmistakably clear. Most of the time, you're not just thinking, you're reacting to your thoughts. A thought arises, "I'm a failure." Immediately, your mind reacts either by rejecting it, "No, I'm not like that," or by believing it, "Yes, I really am terrible." And then you get caught in the storm of thoughts your own mind created. This is one of the subtlest tricks of the mind. It creates thoughts and then becomes trapped by them. You're pulled along not by anyone else, but by the unending stream inside your own head. In meditation practice, we don't try to stop thinking. We simply recognize a thought is here. Then we breathe with it, like breathing with a passing cloud in the sky. No chasing, no rejecting, no rushing to conclusions. And something miraculous happens when you breathe with a thought, adding nothing, taking nothing away. The mind begins to loosen. The inner tension softens. The dialogue quiets. That space of loosening is where freedom begins, a freedom not born of control, but of silent, mindful seeing. You begin to realize you are not the thought. You are the one who sees. An emotion, whether anger, sadness, loneliness, or jealousy, is not a problem in itself. The problem begins when you judge it. When you tell yourself, "I shouldn't feel this," or "this emotion is bad," you start fighting with yourself. You're no longer within the emotion, you're reacting to it. And it's that reaction that makes it linger. Silence in the meditative sense is not avoidance. It's the inner space you consciously create so that emotions can appear and fade naturally. No judgment, no label of good or bad, only seeing. Like sitting by a window, watching the rain fall. You don't blame the rain, nor do you wish for sun. You simply sit and witness. This presence is not passive. It is a living awareness. When you sit quietly without trying to fix anything, you give the mind a chance to rest. And when the mind rests, wisdom appears not from analysis, but from direct wordless contact with reality. That is the root of meditation, not to make you know more, but to help you be more deeply present with yourself. From that presence comes true freedom, not swept away by emotions, not ruled by reactions, but resting in clear, gentle awareness. That is the real foundation of wisdom. There are silences that feel empty, as if you've lost connection or everything has disappeared. But there is also another kind of silence, a space filled with light and presence, where you feel most alive with yourself, wordless, still, yet profoundly vibrant. In the Buddha's teaching, silence is not avoidance. The Buddha often chose silence in response to unnecessary questions, not because he lacked answers, but because some questions should not be answered in words. Some truths can only be realized when the mind is completely still. Wisdom doesn't arise from debate, but from deep presence in the moment. When you stop trying to explain, stop trying to understand everything, a gentle ease arises. The mind no longer struggles within the web of thought. It no longer needs to control. And at that very moment, truth, the one you were chasing, naturally reveals itself. Silence, then, is no longer an emptiness, but a clear mirror, reflecting things exactly as they are. You don't need to do anything. Just be present fully, unwaveringly. In that presence, you are no longer separate from the world, you are an intimate part of it. That is wisdom born from stillness, a wisdom that cannot be learned from books, only realized in the heart. Deep silence is not about keeping your mouth closed, but about keeping the mind from intruding into everything. It is an inner pause, a subtle stopping where you are no longer compelled to react, explain, or insert yourself into the flow of life. You can begin with small moments that have great power. When someone says something unpleasant, instead of reacting, pause. Inhale slowly. Exhale gently. Listen without judgment. When your mind starts to analyze, ask, does this need to be solved by thought or simply seen with awareness? That question brings you back. Before you speak, pause again. Will these words nourish? Are they truly necessary? And most importantly, each day take a few minutes just to sit quietly with yourself. No need to pray. No need to think of enlightenment. No need to do anything at all. Simply be, I am here with this body, this mind, this space. That is where you learn. Deep silence. Where nothing needs to be added, nothing needs to be removed. Only pure presence remains simple and whole. And in that moment, you begin to see everything without the filter of self. Modern neuroscience has found that silence increases activity in the hippocampus, the region of the brain responsible for memory and emotional regulation. It allows the brain to rest, renew, and release the residue of stress. In other words, silence is neural healing. Gentle but profound. What the Buddha called noble silence over 2,500 years ago is now confirmed by science. It is a gateway to lasting peace. We often fear emptiness, the sense of not knowing, not being certain, not being in control. Yet, It is precisely in the moment you dare to stop to admit you don't know, to refrain from speaking or explaining, that the mind opens. That humility is not weakness, it is the condition for wisdom to arise. In meditation, silence is not withdrawal from life. It is a conscious stepping back. So you no longer try to control or solve everything. And when you stop being the one who always needs to fix you, begin to see reality as it is beyond the filter of self, then you no longer revolve around me, but perceive all things as they truly are. Impermanent, selfless, interconnected. The moment you dare not to know, not to interfere, not to grasp, that is when you touch the deepest layer of understanding. It doesn't come from intellect, but from total presence. In that space, emptiness is no longer frightening. It becomes the room where truth enters. When you no longer feel the need to answer every thought, your mind is no longer trapped in reasoning. When you allow everything to be without trying to fix you, open the door for wisdom to flow naturally, free from ego's control. And from that silence, you begin to see emotions as they are. But this time, you are not carried away. You can look at them without fear. You can breathe with them without avoidance. And then, you learn to transform emotions through mindfulness rather than react through habit. Anger is not bad. Sadness is not a failure. Jealousy is not a sign of poor practice. These emotions by themselves are not wrong. They are simply forms of living energy, arising and passing like rain and sunshine, like the movement of the wind. The problem is not the emotion itself. The problem lies in how you relate to it. Many people, when anger arises, feel regret. When sadness comes, they hate themselves. When jealousy appears, they feel ashamed. They think emotions must be destroyed, suppressed, or treated as enemies. But in the Buddhist teaching, we learn the opposite. Emotions do not need to be banished. They only need to be seen clearly, with a non-judging mind. That is the power of the mindfulness. A negative emotion that is ignored or denied becomes a kind of poison. It seeps quietly into your thoughts, reactions, and relationships, and over time it erodes your inner peace. But when it is illuminated by the light of mindfulness, that same emotion is no longer an enemy. It becomes a doorway to understanding, a medicine that helps you see deeply and transform. For example, when anger arises, if you let it lead the way, it will drive you into actions that hurt others and yourself. But if you can pause just for one mindful breath and honestly name it, I am angry, without judgment, without running, without justification, you withdraw its energy from reaction. That anger, instead of burning like fire, begins to cool like ashes. In that process, you are not suppressing anger. You are dissolving it through awareness. The Buddha called this the path of transformation from greed, hatred, and delusion to morality, concentration, and wisdom. Nothing needs to be eliminated. Everything can be transformed if you neither run from it nor are ruled by it. Mindfulness is not the effort to remove emotions. It is the ability to be fully present. with whatever arises in the mind with compassion and clear seeing. Each time you practice this way, you are rewriting karma. You are creating a future no longer driven by unconscious patterns. You are using emotion as fuel, not for rebellion, but for insight. When mindfulness is absent, you often don't even realize you are angry until your words have already hurt someone. You don't know you are sad until you've withdrawn into a quiet room, avoiding the world. A mind without awareness reacts by instinct, and those repeated reactions continue to feed untransformed karma. But the moment you become fully present with an emotion, even for a brief instant, everything changes. That moment when you pause to see, this is an emotion, is the right threshold of freedom. Because when you see clearly, you are no longer led by the emotion. You stop acting like a machine and begin to choose consciously. In the Buddha's teaching, mindfulness is not a technique of control. It is deep presence right where the emotion arises. It is the light that dissolves the darkness of ignorance. And when that light becomes strong, you see that emotion is not the enemy, but the place where understanding and compassion are cultivated. So do not underestimate a single moment of pause. That moment is not just self-control. It is where you begin to rewrite karma with wisdom. When a child cries, it only takes one calm adult to say, you're sad because you felt rejected, right? And the child's emotion softens by half. That easing doesn't come from reasoning or comfort. It comes from something much deeper. The emotion is recognized. Adults are the same. You and I are the same. When an emotion is named, it begins to dissolve. In Buddhist practice, this is called mindfulness of feelings, Vedananupasana. It means you no longer let emotions operate unconsciously in the dark. Instead, you step into them with the light of awareness. You look directly at the emotion and name it. This is anger. This is sadness. This is anxiety. No analysis, no resistance, just naming. This simple act of naming pulls you out of identification. When you say, I'm angry, you become the anger. But when you say anger is present in me, you stand in a different place, the place of the observer. And from that place, the place of mindfulness transformation begins. In Buddhism, this is the foundation for freedom from suffering. An emotion becomes toxic only when it is rejected or identified with. But when it is seen with an open, non-judging mind, it naturally transforms without force, without struggle, simply through your steady, gentle presence. When you observe emotions mindfully, you realize something simple yet profound. Emotions are like clouds. They seem dense and heavy, but if you don't react, if you sit quietly and look deeply, you see there is nothing solid inside. They have form and movement, but no core. They are not your essence, only passing phenomena. Anger, sadness, fear. If you stop feeding them with thoughts, interpretations, or mental stories, they will fade on their own, like clouds moving across the sky. You don't have to chase away emotions. You only have to stop fueling them. And mindfulness is exactly how you do that. Be present. Look deeply. Breathe evenly without reacting. The Buddha taught all conditioned phenomena are impermanent. Emotions are conditioned phenomena. They arise, stay, and pass away. Nothing remains forever. When you observe this cycle in yourself, you stop fearing emotions. You no longer think I'll hurt forever or I'll always be angry. You know, like clouds, everything will pass. And when the mind no longer clings to what is passing, peace naturally blooms within. You have the right to feel everything that arises within you: sadness, anger, jealousy, disappointment. No emotion is wrong. What matters is that you don't let those emotions decide how you act. A practitioner is not someone without emotion, but someone aware of emotions as they arise. They don't act by instinct or let emotions carry them away. They know how to pause, observe, and respond with compassion and wisdom instead of reacting out of habit. Anger, when observed correctly, is not evil. It's a signal showing that something inside you has been hurt or needs protection. But will you protect yourself through understanding or through attack? Will you listen to anger as a friend or let it take control? It depends entirely on your level of awareness. When you are mindful, you neither suppress anger nor explode with it. You breathe with it, acknowledge it, and let it teach you about yourself. In that moment, anger stops being poison and becomes medicine for deep transformation. And you, instead of reacting, begin to live differently. How do you turn emotions into wisdom in daily life? No complicated technique is needed. You only need to be present. When a strong emotion arises, anger, fear, hurt, pause. Don't rush to react. Don't rush to fix. First, return to the body. Place your hand where you feel the emotion most, maybe the chest, stomach, or throat. Feel that point of tension as a signal from deep within. Then ask, what is the name of this emotion? Maybe anger, maybe sadness, maybe disappointment. When you name it accurately, you step out of identification. You are no longer the emotion. You are the observer. Whisper within, I see you, anger. I'll sit with you for a while. No pushing away. No rushing to comfort. Just breathe slowly and allow the emotion to move naturally without interruption by judgment or avoidance. Imagine sitting beside a crying child. You don't need to advise or fix. You just sit gently, fully present. That is exactly what your emotions have been needing for a very long time. And when you are present with an emotion like that, mindfulness becomes the soil from which wisdom begins to grow. In the Buddha's teaching, there is a deep path of transformation, turning poison into medicine. This is not poetic language, but a practical path for anyone living with the ups and downs of daily emotion. The three roots of suffering, greed, anger, and ignorance are not to be destroyed, but refined into the three jewels of morality, concentration, and wisdom. When you feel anger but don't act on it, when you refrain from hurting others through words or deeds, that is morality sala. Not rigid restraint, but a conscious pause in awareness. When you stop and breathe, bringing attention back to the breath, that is concentration samadhi, Concentration is not sitting still for hours. It is the steadiness of mind that remains unmoved even in the middle of emotion. And when you see clearly that emotion is just a wave arising and passing, not your true nature. Wisdom, panyatanan, is born. That wisdom doesn't come from books, but from direct experience with your own mind. Morality, concentration, and wisdom are not distant ideals for monks. They are a living process. You can practice every day. Each emotion that arises, if seen through these 3 steps, becomes an opportunity to learn rather than another entanglement. In that way, the very place of suffering becomes the beginning of healing. Modern mindfulness research confirms this truth. People who can recognize emotions early show reduced activity in the brain's reactive center, the amygdala, and increased function in higher executive regions, the prefrontal cortex. Simply put, mindfulness makes you react less and choose more. You are no longer pulled by emotion. You respond with intelligence, compassion, and clarity. Emotions are not something to eliminate. They are the most alive and honest part of you. But without mindfulness, they drive you into old karmic cycles. With mindfulness, they become teachers. Each time an emotion arises, if you can pause, breathe, name, and look deeply, you are turning poison into medicine. And interestingly, the strongest emotions often arise in relationships with family partners, children, colleagues. It is through these very interactions that you react, replay old karma, and also where you have the chance to see yourself clearly on the path of practice. If you want to know how far you've truly progressed in your practice, don't just look at how calm you are when you meditate alone in silence. Look at how you react in your relationships, when you're misunderstood, when someone says something you don't like, when a loved one hurts you, or when the person you care about doesn't act the way you expected. Those moments are the real test of your inner cultivation. Because relationships are where your deepest karma surfaces most clearly. Old wounds, unconscious reactions, unmet needs, all of these are revealed not in your quiet moments, but in your interactions with others. A good practitioner is not someone who feels nothing in relationships, but someone who sees emotions arise clearly and chooses to respond mindfully, not out of old habits. Every relationship, when viewed through the lens of practice, becomes a living temple, a place where karma is revealed and also where transformation begins. Sometimes just by someone walking into a room, you already feel uneasy. They haven't insulted you nor said anything harsh, but something in their eyes, their tone, or their presence triggers a strong reaction in you. Anger, discomfort, tension, even aversion without knowing why. It's not because they're bad. It's because they've touched a wound inside you, an emotion that hasn't been healed or faced. The Buddha called this a reaction born of past karma emotional seeds, imprinted in the storehouse consciousness, now awakened by a certain condition. That person becomes a living mirror, reflecting you back to yourself. They aren't intentionally trying to hurt you, but their presence brings into light what was hidden in you. If you're mindful enough, you won't want to shatter that mirror. You'll see it as a chance to observe the karma surfacing, to watch how your mind operates, and to begin a gentle process of transformation without blaming, without running away, simply seeing what is. Every time you react, karma is revealed. Anger, irritation, jealousy, hurt, pride. These are not wrong. They are living signals that something in you is still waiting to be seen, understood, and healed. Karma doesn't lie in the other person's action. It lies in the movement of your own mind. So when a reaction arises, your first step is not to blame or control, but to pause. Don't rush to condemn yourself for still being vulnerable. Don't rush to blame the one who hurt you. Instead, turn inward and ask, is this reaction familiar? How many times has it repeated in my life? Does it truly come from this person or from an old wound that never had a name? When you have the courage to observe the reaction instead of reacting, you enter the process of karmic insight, a vital step in transformation. From that moment of pause, a new path opens. No longer a blind repetition, but a conscious response rewriting old karma with the light of understanding. Don't think that only when you sit cross-legged on a cushion, eyes closed, letting go of everything that you are practicing. True practice is when you are in the middle of a family meal filled with mixed emotions, in a heated discussion, or right after being misunderstood or insulted, yet you remain awake and clear. That is where Shila, Samadhi, Panya, morality, concentration, and wisdom truly operate. Morality, Shila. When you choose not to speak words that harm even while your heart burns, you guard your speech, knowing words are actions that create karma. Concentration, Samadhi. When you don't let your mind be swept away even as someone attacks you, you still breathe, you still stay present, you don't rush to react. Wisdom, Panya. When you see karma rising, the feeling of being hurt, abandoned, or dismissed, and you don't identify with it, you're not the anger. You're the awareness that sees anger. A loved one can teach you how to open your heart, but the one who hurts you is the silent teacher showing you how to live with morality, concentration, and wisdom in everyday life. And that is true practice. It's not by chance that you were born into this family, surrounded by these particular people, entangled in these seemingly unavoidable relationships. Parents, children, partners. These deep bonds are not just present life connections. They are karmic threads woven across lifetimes. So when a loved one hurts you, your first reaction may be anger or blame. Why are they like this? Why can't they understand me? But if you pause, truly pause, and look deeper, you'll see they're not the root cause of your suffering. They are the trigger that awakens a seed long planted within you, like an old wound that still hurts with a light touch. That person through a word or a gesture has touched a place in you that's never healed. If you're mindful, you won't ask, why are they like this? But rather, what habit am I repeating? How many times in this life, and perhaps in others, have I felt this same emotion? In that moment of awareness, karma begins to be illuminated. From that light, a new path appears. One that no longer blames others for your pain, but brings you back to meet yourself at the root of reaction. That is the first step toward freedom. Sometimes you feel uneasy the very first time you meet someone. They've done nothing wrong, they've just appeared. Yet something inside you reacts. That reaction doesn't come from the present. It comes from an old karmic pattern, an unrecognized past experience, an impression imprinted deeply in your consciousness. This is a precious opportunity to observe your unconscious bias. You are not seeing this person with fresh eyes, but through the lens of your past, the pains, disappointments, and judgments you once carried. If you don't see clearly, you'll keep reacting through that same lens. But when you pause, breathe, and realize this discomfort doesn't come from them, it comes from what I still carry, you step into mindfulness and wisdom. This is what the Buddha called non-discriminating wisdom. The ability to see others without the veil of prejudice, to see no one as good or bad, lovable or unlovable, but as they are here and now, free from the stories of the past. From that space, your heart opens gently and freely. You may think you are kind until someone misunderstands and speaks wrongly of you. You may believe you are awakened until jealousy arises in love. You may think you've let go until you see someone succeed and feel shaken inside. These reactions reveal the hidden corners of the mind. Every relationship is a mirror reflecting the illusion you've built around the self. The Buddha taught, there is no fixed self, only a stream of changing mind. You see this truth most clearly in interaction when words, actions, or attitudes trigger you. Each reaction, anger, envy, pride, is a fragment of ego trying to survive. But when you recognize, I'm not reacting because they're wrong, but because I still have unhealed wounds, awareness begins to arise. And right there, the ego starts to loosen. You no longer need to defend any image. You just see and release. Every time a negative emotion surfaces, especially towards someone, it's not just discomfort. It's a doorway to the unhealed past. If you're mindful, you can step through that doorway to meet yourself instead of blaming others. Pause even for a few seconds and gently ask, what part of me is this person touching? Then write it down without judgment. I feel angry because I feel dismissed. That simple sentence might be the first time you've named an emotion that has lived quietly inside you for years. Next, ask, have I felt this before? And a memory may arise, a moment from childhood when you were left out, judged, or silenced. Today's feeling is just a replay, not the fault of the person before you. When you see that, you begin to see yourself more clearly. That is the first step of awakening, the beginning of freedom. Sitting alone in a quiet room undisturbed, you may think you are calm and awakened. But true awareness isn't measured by stillness when there are no waves. It's measured by how you stay mindful in the middle of life, amidst noise, conflict, loved ones, and even those who irritate you. The Buddha never taught that practice means escaping life. He taught that practice is living within life, but with a clear mind. Because it is in everyday relationships and careless words, sudden reactions, and small conflicts that karma arises most visibly. And there you have the chance to see deeply into yourself. You don't need to leave the world, live in a monastery, or hide in the forest to practice. You only need to live where you are with presence. Every word you speak, every glance you give, every reaction you choose, see it as a Dharma gate, an opportunity to look within. That is true practice. Everyone who comes into your life is a mirror. They're not here to be perfect, nor to harm you. They're here to reflect the parts of you still unseen, giving you a chance to grow and transform. If you can learn to pause to look at your reaction to see karma operating, you'll stop blaming. You'll begin to feel gratitude because through them you've come to see yourself. And when you truly see yourself, you begin to let go of the stubborn, wounded self, the one that always thinks it's right, the one that wants others to change. From that seeing, forgiveness naturally arises, not forced, not moralistic, but as the natural fruit of realizing non-self. When you still believe I'm the victim, your mind automatically divides the world into two sides, those who hurt and those who are hurt. And of course, you stand on the side of pain. From there, even the smallest unintentional act of others easily feels like an arrow aimed at you. You live in a state of defense with a closed heart, constantly seeking fairness. But if you pause and look deeply, you'll realize a gentler truth. No one truly intends to hurt you. The other person in that moment is being guided by ignorance, by old habits, by their own unhealed wounds. They act not because they want you to suffer, but because they themselves are suffering and don't yet know another way. And in the very moment you see this, not through logic, but through a quiet inner seeing, you realize that forgiveness requires no effort. Forgiveness blooms like a flower. It doesn't need to be commanded to open. With enough light of understanding, enough warmth of compassion, it simply unfolds on its own. Resentment fades. Only clarity and lightness remain. Most people try to forgive as a moral duty. They believe that if they endure long enough, suppress hard enough, or force themselves enough, one day the wound will disappear. But forgiveness cannot be born from suppression, nor can it come from denial of pain. It's like pushing a stone under water. Once you release it, it resurfaces. A hidden wound continues to live quietly beneath the surface. True forgiveness doesn't come from effort. It arises from wisdom. It begins when you look deeply into the nature of suffering and see that those who hurt you didn't act from awareness, but from ignorance. No one who is truly happy would hurt another being. Only those in pain who don't know they are in pain make others suffer too. And in the moment, you see that clearly through the eyes of compassion, not reason. Your heart softens. You no longer need to forgive, because there's nothing to force. What remains is a quiet tenderness, a deep empathy for the other person who may be suffering even more than you. In Buddhist teaching, ignorance doesn't only mean not knowing, it also means knowing wrongly. When the mind is clouded by ignorance, we see everything through a distorted lens. We don't see reality as it truly is. And from that distortion come wrong words, wrong actions, and wrong thoughts while still believing we are right. When someone hurts you, the natural reaction is to assume they did it on purpose. But if you look deeper, you'll see they acted from fear, from unhealed wounds, from false ideas about happiness. They thought that by saying or doing those things, they were protecting themselves or seeking a bit of comfort. They didn't realize that their way caused pain for both sides. And when you see this not intellectually, but through the awakened heart, you no longer want revenge. You no longer want to teach them a lesson. You simply want to be silent and compassionate because you understand ignorance is our shared enemy. When you deeply understand non-self, you see clearly there is no true perpetrator and no true victim. There is only karma unfolding through actions, words, and reactions. The person who insults you isn't fully in control of their speech. They're being driven by past karma, life conditions, unhealed pain, and ignorance they themselves cannot see. They didn't act to hurt you intentionally, but from the force of conditioning they never understood. And you too have made mistakes, not because you were bad, but because you couldn't yet see clearly. You acted wrongly simply because you weren't awake enough to choose better. When you realize this, you stop living in the world of, I'm right, they're wrong. You see something greater. We are all students in life's classroom, each learning our own lessons in our own ways. And when the small ego no longer demands punishment, compassion naturally arises. No effort, no reasoning. It simply shines like sunlight that doesn't choose who deserves its warmth. Many people hesitate to forgive because they think forgiveness means condoning the wrong or allowing others to hurt them again. But that's not true. In the light of Buddhist wisdom, forgiveness isn't denial. It's understanding why things happened the way they did. When you truly understand, resentment dissolves naturally, not because you're weak or submissive, but because you no longer live inside the story of, I am the victim. When the mind is no longer trapped in that role, you step out of the emotional loop you've unconsciously repeated for years. In Buddhist teaching, forgiveness is not just kindness. It's the manifestation of non-self in action. When you release the ideas of me, them, and their fault, separation disappears. There's no one left to forgive. Everyone is simply learning their lessons, including you. And in that seeing, compassion arises effortlessly. Forgiveness ceases to be something you do. It becomes the natural outcome of an awakened heart. That is freedom. The self that feels hurt is the root of suffering. As long as you identify with names, roles, beliefs, and emotions, any word or action from others can feel like an attack. But when that self dissolves, there's no one left to be offended and no one to blame. Your mind becomes vast, like the sky where clouds of anger find no place to cling. The Buddha under the Bodhi tree was not someone who conquered enemies or escaped reality. He was one who saw clearly that there are no true enemies, only ignorance expressing itself through beings. And because he saw this, no anger could arise. Within him remained only the stillness of boundless compassion. When you contemplate this deeply, forgiveness is no longer an act you must perform. It becomes the natural state of a mind no longer ruled by ego. Forgiveness becomes the fruit of understanding, not the effort of will. And in that state, you step out of the cycle of pain to live lightly, peacefully, and with love. You don't need to wait for your heart to be completely calm to start forgiving. Just begin with a simple practice each time memories of those who hurt you return. Sit down. You don't need to force silence. Just be present. Take a slow, deep breath Then exhale gently and whisper inwardly, "I'm remembering the pain." In that moment of recognition, you're no longer lost in emotion. You've become the one who sees. You're watching the cloud of emotion pass through the sky of your mind. You don't need to push it away or replay the old story. Simply remind yourself, this feeling is not me. It comes and it goes. When you're calm enough, ask softly, how much pain must that person have carried to act that way? This isn't to excuse them. It's a breath that shifts you from judgment to understanding, from closing to opening. That question asked with awareness dissolves the boundary between I am the victim and they are the offender. And in that quiet space, resentment begins to transform, not by will, but by insight. Forgiveness starts to blossom naturally, like a flower, not from the mind, but from a heart gentle enough to see truth without needing anyone to be right or wrong. Neuroscientists say that when you hold on to resentment, your brain releases the same chemicals as when you're under threat. Each time you relive the pain, your body experiences real fear. But when you let go, when you practice loving kindness, the brain activates regions linked to compassion and calm. The body releases oxytocin, the chemical of connection and healing. What the Buddha taught 2,500 years ago, that hatred never ceases by hatred, but only by love, has now been confirmed by modern science. When you don't forgive the one who suffers, isn't them, it's you. Resentment doesn't punish anyone. It only creates new karma, heavy, repetitive energy, fed by unexamined thoughts and emotions. Each time you recall the past and reopen the wound, you tighten another chain around your heart. Gradually, you imprison yourself in a cage of your own making. That's why forgiveness is not a gift for others, it's a gift for yourself. It's the release of a burden carried too long. It's the first step toward freeing the mind. When you truly release resentment, old karmic energy stops being fueled. It comes to rest, not because you forgot, but because you no longer identify with the old story. The current of consciousness becomes lighter, clearer, freer. From there, you begin to live with a new mind, no longer bound by the past, no longer driven by pain. Old karma fades. New karma doesn't arise. And the miracle is this liberation doesn't come from what you do, but from what you see. Just seeing clearly that alone begins transformation. Forgiveness isn't only for great wounds. It begins in small, ordinary moments. When someone says something unpleasant, you don't have to react immediately. Just breathe deeply and look within. What part of you is being touched? When a loved one acts differently from what you expect, don't rush to judge. Instead, ask, what fear might be living in them right now? That question opens space for compassion instead of closing it with blame. And most importantly, when you make mistakes, don't rush to condemn yourself. Learn to forgive yourself first. Because one who isn't gentle with themselves cannot truly open the heart to others. Forgiveness then isn't a grand act. but a small habit repeated with every breath, every interaction, every reaction in daily life, you'll come to see. Forgiveness is not just a way to release the past. It's a way to open the future. When you no longer live in stories of right and wrong, when you stop replaying what should have been, the energy within you changes. Your voice softens. Your gaze becomes kinder. Even the way you walk, sit, and see life becomes lighter, more peaceful. This is no longer a mental state. It is true freedom. And as you move through that freedom, each breath becomes healing, each step an invitation to return home. You begin to see the beauty of the present more clearly. You stop reacting as you once did. At that point, forgiveness is no longer an idea to understand. It becomes a way of being. It lives in every glance, every gesture, every moment. You choose not to repeat the old pattern. You don't need to say, "I have forgiven." You just live as someone who has let go. And healing will flow through everything you touch. Forgiveness is not forgetting, not pretending, not trying to appear noble. It is simply recognizing the true nature of suffering, that there is no enemy, no victim, only karma and ignorance unfolding through life. When you see this clearly, the self dissolves. And where the self dissolves, compassion fills the space. No striving, no effort. Forgiveness blooms naturally like a lotus rising from the mud. When the heart softens and the mind opens, every breath, every step you take becomes an act of healing. You don't need to go to a quiet place. You don't need wind chimes, meditation music, or a peaceful garden to practice mindfulness. All you truly need are feet that can still walk and a heart that is ready to return. In the fast rhythm of modern life, we walk a lot, but we rarely arrive in our own steps. We move from one place to another, but our mind has already gone far ahead. The Buddha taught, "Walk as if you are not walking." Meaning, don't let yourself be swept away, not by thoughts, not by emotions. When you practice like this, every step is no longer about getting somewhere. It becomes a return to yourself, to the present moment. Each step is a silent prayer. Each breath is a gentle release. And awareness begins from such simple things. Walking has the power to heal, not because it's special, but because it opens one of the three gateways back to the present: body, mind, and breath. When you walk mindfully, all three are united, and that harmony brings you home to the only true dwelling, here and now. Each mindful step pulls the wandering mind back to the body. Each breath walking beside your step interrupts the chain of restless thinking. And when thoughts pause, a tender space appears spacious enough for healing to arise naturally. You don't need to force peace. You don't need to try to be calm. Just relax and walk. Walk gently, as if stepping on clouds or morning mist. Walk as though each footprint blossoms into a flower of mindfulness beneath you. And in that simplicity, the mind's complexities begin to dissolve like dew quietly melting under the first sunlight of the day. Many people believe walking meditation is only for monasteries or silent places. But the truth is, any path you walk, if walked with awareness, can become a meditation path. From your bedroom to the kitchen, from the parking lot to the office, from your doorstep to the balcony, every path you walk each day is an invitation to return to yourself. You don't have to stop life to practice. You only need to slow down, breathe in, breathe out, and be fully present. In each step, you don't need cool air or bird song. You don't need to find external silence, just soften the noise inside. Each step, if taken mindfully, becomes a steady boat, carrying you across the flood of thoughts that once swept your mind away. And when you truly walk like this, you realize even the simplest step can lead you to the deepest peace. It's no longer a movement to go somewhere, but a journey of return to body, to mind, to the living moment itself. Each step becomes a sacred prayer, not spoken aloud, but offered through the full presence of your heart. As you walk, you can silently say within, "This step brings me home. This step helps me be myself. With this step, I offer gratitude. With this step, I release resentment." These aren't recitations or rituals. They are ways to unite body, speech, and mind, the three foundations of the Buddhist path, into one simple act. And when the three become one, you're no longer walking with your feet, but with your whole awareness. Each step then becomes sacred, a quiet prayer, an offering to the present moment. And when the present is honored this deeply, it reveals its hidden doors of peace, the kind of peace that needs no conditions. You don't need to change your life. You only need to walk step by step with presence. And from the smallest step, the greatest transformation can begin. Because coming home often starts with just one step. Science has confirmed this ancient truth. Mindful walking reduces stress hormones, lowers blood pressure, stabilizes heart rate, and improves brain function. When you walk with awareness, you activate the parasympathetic nervous system, the body's rest and restore mode, releasing it from the fight or flight response. That means you're not just calming your mind, you're healing your nervous system and your organs. Walking meditation, unlike walking for exercise, isn't about speed, distance, or calories. It's not about achieving something, but about returning to yourself. You don't need perfect posture or rhythm. You only need to be present in each step. Each step is a reminder, I am here, and that alone is a miracle. When thoughts arise, don't push them away. Just breathe softly and keep walking. When emotions surge, don't analyze or suppress. Just be present with them through steady, mindful steps. Gradually, you'll realize the mind grows still, not because you forced it to, but because you stopped trying to control it. And in that non-control, the mind becomes like a quiet morning lake, still enough to reflect the truth. That is what walking meditation offers, a journey not of seeking, but of returning. Not of effort, but of surrender. not to go far, but to touch stillness right here in your very step. How can you practice mindful walking right in the middle of a busy life? You don't need long hours. You only need small moments of awareness woven into daily life. Each time you go to the restroom, walk slowly. Breathe deeply once. Leave in complete silence. Before opening a door, don't rush. Pause. Breathe, then enter. When you're stressed, stand up. Take a few slow steps around the room. No goal, just returning. Before sleep, turn off all devices. Walk slowly around your room for 5 minutes. Be present with each step, each breath. You don't have to do all of these. But even a few moments each day will begin to soften the mind. Your steps will gain depth, and you'll see peace has never been far away. It's right here, in the way you walk through your ordinary day. The Buddha didn't teach meditation only in the sitting posture. He said, "When walking, know you are walking. When standing, know you are standing. When lying down, know you are lying down." This is the essence of the 4 foundations of mindfulness, the heart of practice in daily life. You don't need to retreat into forests or caves to awaken. You only need to bring your mind back to your body in every living moment. When you walk mindfully, each step becomes a silent prayer. Each breath becomes a bell of awakening. Each simple action, opening a door, washing your hands, folding your clothes, becomes a living meditation. And then you'll realize you don't need to wait for a retreat to begin your journey home. Because if you are truly present each day, each step, each breath is already a silent retreat unfolding. There will be days when your heart feels heavy, covered by clouds for no reason you can name. But if you just walk in silence without analyzing, without resisting, simply breathing and observing gently, you'll notice that heaviness begins to dissolve. Not because you did something special, but because you stopped fighting what is. When you walk in mindfulness, you no longer run from emotions. You don't try to force joy or peace. You simply return to your body, your breath, the earth beneath your feet, and allow everything to be as it is. In that simplicity, something profound happens. You stop clinging to any mental state. You begin to feel light, not because problems disappeared, but because the need to fix them has. That's why walking meditation is not just a technique, it is the way, the art of returning deeply to yourself. You don't need to be a skilled meditator. Just learn to walk as if you are loving the earth beneath your feet. You don't need to become anyone else. Just return to yourself in each step, and with each step like this, your wounds begin to breathe. Your mind begins to soften. Your breath deepens, and you realize nothing is ever too late to heal, because when you can walk with awareness past, future, and present, all dissolve into a single step, an open, whole, boundless step, and in that step you are no longer separated from yourself. When you've spent the whole day trying to live mindfully, it's easy to fall into the wish, I just want to fall asleep fast deeply, and escape from everything for a while. That feeling is real. But if you look deeper, you'll see sleep is not the end of your practice. It's a sacred continuation of it. In the Buddhist teachings, there is no boundary between day and night when it comes to mindfulness. Night is when the body rests, but the mind continues to operate. And if you can bring the light of awareness into each breath before sleep, even your dreams become part of the path. You don't need to control your dreams. You only need to be conscious of the transition from wakefulness to sleep with a gentle breath, a quiet inner reminder, or a simple wish of well-being for yourself. Gradually, sleep stops being a form of escape and becomes a space of deep healing where the mind can rest without losing awareness. And from that space, a new dawn of clarity will rise. Have you ever experienced a night like this? Your body is lying down. The lights are off. The room is quiet. But your mind keeps moving like waves that refuse to settle. It keeps thinking, worrying, replaying fragments of unresolved memories. A small voice inside whispers, "Why am I still not at peace? Why do I still remember? Why am I still afraid?" Many people think mindfulness is only needed during the day. But the truth is, the mind has no rest hours. It keeps functioning, creating karma, recreating memories even as you sleep. And if awareness isn't present, sleep becomes a form of escape from thought, emotion, and from yourself. The Buddha never taught us to practice only when sitting cross-legged or chanting before an altar. In the middle-length discourses, he emphasized repeatedly, mindfulness must be present in all four postures: walking, standing, sitting, and lying down. Even while lying down to rest, you can maintain a soft and natural awareness without forcing. He said, "When the body lies on its right side, like a lion, maintaining awareness of breathing in and out, recognizing sensations and passing thoughts, that person continues the practice of mindfulness even in rest." What does that mean? It means sleep doesn't have to be unconscious. It can be a form of meditation, a gentle continuation of practice. If you bring mindfulness into the moments before you lie down by breathing softly, feeling the body, placing a hand on your heart or belly, smiling to yourself, the mind naturally settles. When you enter sleep with that kind of awareness, without forcing yourself to be calm, deep, or perfect, even your dreams begin to transform. Old layers of karma start to dissolve softly. It's no longer a night of forgetting yourself, but a night of returning home, a night of true practice in silence, in release, in mindfulness. Most people toss and turn at night, not because their body isn't tired, but because the mind still holds too much that hasn't been seen. During the day, you can hide emotions behind work screens and busyness. But when night falls and everything quiets down, the mind opens, and what's been suppressed begins to surface. Unspoken anger, unfelt sadness, unhealed wounds. They don't disappear. They wait for the moment you finally lie down to be heard. You don't need to fight that. You don't need to force yourself to sleep early, stop feeling sad, or forget everything. What you need is to stay and see what's appearing. If an emotion arises, don't reject it. Greet it like an old friend who has come to visit. Whisper gently inside, "I see you." Anger, fatigue, hurt. It's okay. Then inhale deeply. Exhale slowly and let it pass like a cloud drifting across the sky. That is the practice. Not because you've conquered the emotion, but because you can see it and no longer get carried away by it. In that moment, sleep stops being an escape and becomes a homecoming. Gentle, aware, healing, deeper than any sleeping pill could offer. In meditation, the breath is a soft anchor that keeps the mind present. When you breathe and know you are breathing, you are no longer pulled by the past or the future. And before sleep, the breath becomes the bridge into rest, slow, effortless, conscious. You can practice like this every night. When you lie down, don't open your phone. Don't check one last message. Don't add another word to others or to yourself. Just breathe. Breathe in knowing this is an in-breath. Breathe out, releasing all tension in your shoulders, neck, chest, and belly. Feel your whole body soften, loosen like a cloud slowly dissolving into open space. If a thought arises, don't resist it, don't follow it. Just say silently, "I'm thinking." Then return to the breath. Gently, patiently. You don't need to silence every thought to have deep sleep. You only need to stop chasing them. In that simple presence, full yet effortless, you begin to enter sleep as if entering a light meditation. No striving, no control, just awareness and tenderness toward yourself. That's how healing happens even while you sleep. When you fall asleep with a clear and relaxed mind, neither anxious nor lost in fantasy, your entire nervous system begins to shift. Sleep is no longer withdrawal. It becomes a profound process of renewal. Modern neuroscience now confirms what the Buddha taught over 2,500 years ago. Practicing mindfulness before sleep leads to deeper, higher quality rest. Nightmares decrease, replaced by dreams that restore and harmonize. The nervous system enters a deep repair mode, regenerating both body and mind, not merely resting them. In Buddhism, this state is called mindful awareness within calm. It means even as the body sleeps, a gentle light of awareness remains in the deeper layers of consciousness. And that subtle awareness is what opens the door to true healing sleep, not because you sleep longer, but because you sleep rightly. You don't have to solve every problem of the day before you deserve rest. You only need to be honest with what's here. Maybe it's a sadness without a name, a thought not yet understood, a feeling that hasn't been embraced. An emotion doesn't dissolve just because you ignore it. It needs to be seen, named with mindfulness, and breathed with like a friend. When you lie down, not to escape the day, but to be fully present with it, even without answers, healing has already begun. Whisper to your heart, "I don't need to be perfect to rest. I just need to be honest." And that honesty, unmasked, unforced, unpainted, becomes the deepest material for release, allowing both body and mind to rest in genuine peace. How can you turn sleep into part of your practice? You don't need complex methods. Just a few simple steps, and you can begin tonight. Before bed, turn off all devices at least 30 minutes earlier. Sit quietly, breathe softly, and let your mind slow down from the rhythm of the day. When you lie down, don't rush to fall asleep fast. Just breathe slowly. Feel each part of your body soften, melt as if being gently embraced. If thoughts appear, whisper, "I'm thinking." It's okay. If emotions rise, place a hand on your chest. Inhale, exhale, and say, "I see you. I'm here." Maintain that gentle awareness until you drift into sleep like a leaf floating downstream. You don't have to force yourself to sleep well. You only need to return in mindfulness. Then sleep is no longer unconscious surrender. It becomes a deep continuation of the path the Buddha once taught. When one knows the body is lying down and the mind is moving, that person, even in sleep, has not lost mindfulness. This doesn't mean you must sleep lightly or strain to stay alert. It means the state of mind you carry into sleep is the seed of tomorrow. If you fall asleep with tension, anger, or anxiety, unacknowledged, that energy continues into your dreams and into the morning. But if you breathe in, breathe out, release the body, and hold yourself in mindfulness, you enter sleep as you would enter deep meditation. The mind rests, but you do not lose yourself. Then sleep is no longer just rest for the body. It becomes a continuation of meditation, a doorway into awareness. And you realize waking up is not leaving sleep. It's simply continuing the path, beginning with the very first breath of the day. Look into your ordinary moments and illuminate them with mindfulness. Sleep is one of those moments. When you lie down in awareness, the breath becomes the gatekeeper. Emotions become passing guests, and you no longer caught in who's right or wrong. Become the silent witness who simply sees and lets go. You don't need a perfectly calm mind to sleep. You only need to stay with the breath, with the body, with the feeling in mindfulness. And in that way you fall asleep not to escape life, but to see it more clearly in the deepest silence of the night. We grow up in a world that teaches us, if something feels wrong, it must be fixed. Fix your mood. Fix your past. Fix your emotions. Fix yourself. And so when you still feel sad, angry, or hurt, you ask, why haven't I moved on yet? Why am I so weak? Why can't I forgive faster? Unconsciously, you treat your own mind like a technical error to repair. You confront yourself instead of listening. You patch your wounds instead of sitting beside them. You try to be right instead of being real. In Buddhism, this is called upadana, attachment to an ideal self, the grasping mind that always wants to control and correct. But the tighter you hold on, the further you drift from your living truth. There are cracks that don't need to be repaired. They only need to be seen, to be breathed with, to be allowed without fixing. And right there, real healing begins. Not from changing, but from seeing without judgment. From a gentle presence held in the space of unspoken pain. Every crack in you is whispering something if you are quiet enough to listen. Have you ever just sat down without analyzing, without overthinking, simply to listen to your sadness, not to fix it, not to justify it, just to be with it, to let that sadness tell its own story? Because every emotion is in truth a fragment of unrecognized wisdom. Anger says, "My boundaries were crossed." Sadness says, "I know what loss feels like." Hurt says, "I just want to be seen." Numbness says, "I've tried too hard for too long." And when you stop pushing away labeling or suppressing, each crack becomes a doorway, not leading you somewhere else, but leading you home. Home to yourself, not through analysis, but through presence and unconditional acceptance. The very place where you once thought you were broken is where healing is waiting for you to return. Wisdom in Buddhism doesn't arise from memorizing scripture. It blooms when you see the true nature of things right within your ordinary emotions. You don't need to understand everything that happens in your mind. You don't need to dissect every thought for its cause. Just stay long enough, deep enough, and you'll see every emotion carries the three universal marks of existence. Impermanence. It comes, stays, and goes. Non-self. It is not me or mine. Dependent origination. It arises from conditions and fades when those conditions change. Sadness comes not because you are weak, but because countless factors, memories, hormones, circumstances converge. Anger arises not because you are bad, but because something touches an old wound. Feeling not okay doesn't mean you are wrong. It simply means you are in the middle of an unfinished cycle. When you see this clearly, your heart softens. There's no more resistance, no more fixing. And in that clarity, the wound begins to dissolve. Not because you tried to heal it, but because you stopped identifying with it. No one ever taught you how to be soft. This world only taught you how to be strong, rational, controlled, armored to survive. But here's the paradox. The deepest healing never comes from strength. It begins when you are soft enough to embrace yourself. The Buddha never fought defilements with force. He didn't tighten, deny, or suppress. He simply saw with mindfulness. He simply held with compassion. And from that clear seeing, the defilements dissolved on their own. So do you. You don't need to conquer sadness. You don't need to force yourself to be okay. You just need to release the struggle, let go of the belief that something in me must be fixed, and start breathing with what is alive inside you. Because you are not a broken system to be repaired. You are a living river that rebalances itself if you stop damming the flow. When you soften, the mind opens. When you soften, the wounds have room to breathe. And from there, true healing begins. In mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, MBCT, patients are not taught to think positively or fight sadness. They are taught the opposite: to stay with sadness and breathe with it. No need to explain or change it. Simply recognize, this is sadness. And then, like a cloud passing through the sky, let it be there, neither clinging nor pushing away. Scientific studies show stress levels drop significantly self-harming behaviors decrease. Self-worth grows in a steady, lasting way. Why? Because you are no longer at war with yourself. Because the mind is no longer divided, one part feeling, another part denying. The Buddha taught defilements are not destroyed by victory, but by seeing them as they are. You don't need to change yourself right now. You only need to learn to be with yourself through acceptance, through breath, through a gaze free of judgment. And from that space, healing begins. So how do you heal? Through seeing, not through fixing. Here's a simple practice. Yet if you go deep, it can transform the way you meet yourself. You can do it anytime you feel lost, disconnected, or overwhelmed. 1. Sit down. Don't try to do anything. Don't try to escape what you're feeling. 2. Place your hand gently on your chest, a gesture of coming home. 3. Ask silently. In this moment, what in me needs to be heard? 4. If no answer comes, that's fine. Just sit, breathe, be there. 5. If an emotion arises, sadness, anger, worry, don't run. Whisper, I see you. I will stay with you. 6. Don't analyze. Don't explain. Don't try to understand it all. 7. Finally, bring your attention back to the breath softly, like a mother soothing her child after a long cry. This isn't a method to heal instantly, nor is it a technique to reach any special state. It's simply a way of living, being with yourself in honesty and gentleness. Sometimes just staying, not abandoning yourself, is already a profound transformation. In the Heart Sutra, the Buddha said, "Form is no different from emptiness. Emptiness is no different from form. Form is emptiness. Emptiness is form." It means appearance and essence are inseparable. Right within imperfection lies wholeness. Right within the crack light can enter. Many practitioners struggle because they try to become better or less wrong. They only begin to transform when they stop to truly be with what they've always avoided. In that moment when you sit and listen to your sadness without analysis, when you allow anger to exist without suppression, your mind steps into a new space where nothing needs fixing, only understanding. You have been sad. You have failed. You have felt jealousy, anger, confusion. But you are not the sum of those wounds. You are the one seeing them, sitting quietly, witnessing them pass, and that one who sees is awareness itself. That awareness has never been broken, never wrong, never in need of repair. It has always been here, silent, clear, waiting for your return. So you don't need more solutions. You don't need to force yourself to become a better version. Just sit and listen to yourself with a heart that no longer demands change. In that stillness, you may realize you were never damaged. You just were never listened to gently enough. Healing is not about hiding the wound, but sitting beside it with an open heart. Healing is not pretending nothing ever broke, not labeling pain as resolved, not returning to normal as if suffering never existed. Healing happens when you have the courage to sit with your hurt, not to analyze or erase, but simply to be present and to whisper, I see you. I won't turn away from you anymore. You are not a broken machine to fix. You are a living being learning to soften little by little, and in that softness there is compassion, there is truth, there is light. Wisdom doesn't bloom in perfection. It blooms from the mud from where you once fell and from where you chose to stay, to understand. So don't rush to wipe away your tears. Look into them as if gazing at the most sacred part of yourself that's speaking. That is where healing begins. Not through effort, but through gentle, unconditional presence. Sometimes we get stuck in a painful chapter so long that we mistake it for our whole story. You've been hurt. You've known loss, disappointment, betrayal, or a pain too quiet to name. And then you start calling yourself by those names, the abandoned one, the failure, the victim. But the truth is this: no matter how deep the wound it is, only one small fragment in the vast stream of life flowing through you. It is like a brief rain in the long season of spring, a low note in a long symphony, a drop of ink that does not ruin the whole book. You are not the rain. You are the sky that holds it. You are not the sad melody. You are the one writing the entire song. Every time you pause, breathe, and look deeply, you step out of the role of the injured one. You stop being defined by pain. You return to the wider perspective, the view of the one who sees. When you are quiet enough not to react, you realize you were never broken. You were simply walking through a rainy stretch of the road. And beyond that rain, a garden is waiting for you. Not to forget the past, but to live with it with a heart made wider and deeper. You have the right to feel sad, to cry, to be angry. But you don't have to live forever in that room. Emotions are like uninvited guests. Sometimes they arrive suddenly, sometimes they overstay. You can open the door and welcome them, but you don't have to let them move in. You may be lying in the dark room of pain, but like someone waking from a nightmare, you can realize sadness is not you. Anger is not you. Loneliness is not you. They are clouds drifting across the sky of your mind. And you are the sky itself. In Buddhism, this insight marks the beginning of non-self wisdom. When you stop identifying with your emotions, you are no longer trapped in the role of the wounded. You don't need to wait for light to come. You only need to open your eyes. Sometimes just one deep breath, one non-judging gaze, one quiet minute amid the storm of emotion is enough to step out of that dark room. Not because everything is fine, but because you've stopped clinging to the idea, I am the one who is hurt. In that moment, you are no longer the victim. You are the one who sees, and the one who sees was never wounded. One of the deepest misunderstandings people carry is I must be completely healed before I deserve love or peace. But the truth is, you don't have to wait to be okay to live truthfully. You can love even while healing. You can live fully, even with spaces inside you still unnamed. You don't have to erase all your wounds. You just need to see them clearly without letting them rule you. See fear without letting it decide for you. See memory without letting it trap you in old roles. See emotion without letting it write your future. That is real freedom. Freedom is not the absence of pain. Freedom is no longer being afraid of your own emotions. It's being able to sit with yourself like a kind friend, even when the heart still trembles. It's being able to walk with compassion and wisdom, even when some corners remain in shadow. You don't need to be perfect to live authentically. You just need to be present with gentleness and honesty. And sometimes that alone is the deepest healing. What gets hurt is not your true mind, but the self-image, the story you keep replaying. I was hurt. I'm not enough. I'm damaged. But meditation reveals something astonishing. The awareness that sees the wound is not wounded. In Buddhist teaching, that is the knowing mind, unborn and undying. It's always been here. Even when you are sad, angry, or ashamed, there is still a part of you quietly observing, not judging. Like the sky that remains even when covered by clouds. So in meditation, you don't try to erase pain. You simply move your seat from being inside the story to observing it with the light of awareness. And from that place, you are no longer the injured one. You are the one awakening, breathing, seeing, living without resistance, without attachment, without needing to fix. That is the root of deep healing. Not by changing, but by seeing clearly. Seeing without being pulled. Hurting without becoming the hurt. And from there, you stop being a fragment. You become the mirror that shines again. In modern psychology, this state is called cognitive diffusion, seeing thoughts and emotions as events, not as identity. You no longer say, I am sadness, but simply see sadness as arising. You no longer drown in anger, but notice anger is passing. You no longer identify with anxiety, but recognize anxious feelings are here, but they are not me. In Buddhist meditation, this is mindfulness, the ability to see without being swept away. It's the light that ends identification with emotion. And every time you do that, even for a few seconds, you cut one link in the chain of inner samsara. You stop reacting out of habit. You start responding with understanding. You stop repeating old scripts. You begin to write a new path right in that moment. That is karma transformed, not through ritual, but through awareness. Through silence, through breath, through fearless seeing. How do you live as one who is awakening, not as one who is wounded? You don't need a grand beginning. Start small with meaning. Each morning, place a hand over your heart and whisper, today, I choose to live as the one who is awake, not as the past that once led me. Whenever emotion rises, instead of asking, why am I like this? Ask, am I believing an old story? Am I reacting, or am I truly present? Each night before sleep, take a few deep breaths and say quietly, I release today. I don't need to carry it into my dreams. You don't have to act strong or pretend you've moved on. Just remember who you are, the one who is here breathing, seeing. You are not the shadow of what happened. You are the light shining on it. And every moment you stop identifying with pain, you awaken a little more. It is a quiet awakening, but a profound one. A return not loud, but steady. A life no longer repeating the wound, but rewritten by the light of mindfulness. No one is eternally bad. No one suffers forever. The Buddha never called anyone beyond redemption, nor beyond healing. He simply taught, all conditioned things are impermanent. Right understanding leads to liberation. That means no wound lasts forever. No darkness cannot be illuminated. And you, no matter your past anger or sorrow, can begin again. You don't need permission. You don't need to fix everything first. You only need to see clearly, I am not my past. I am not what has hurt me or what I have hurt. The moment you see that is a moment of awakening, a spark of light in the crack, a breath of ease amid long unrest. Faith doesn't come from doing everything right. It comes from the simple fact that you are still seeing, learning, breathing, and still able to choose a new way to live. That is the path of liberation. Quiet, gentle, real. You don't need to wait until the pain is gone to move forward. You only need to see clearly. You are not the pain itself. You are not the sadness, not the mistakes, not the memories that sting. You are the one seeing them, the one who is present, silently watching without judgment or escape. And that one is your true self, deeper than all stories, vaster than all suffering, purer than any dream. That one is awakening, not because the pain has vanished, but because you no longer mistake yourself for it. That is the moment freedom begins. From the first words of this journey until now, you have traveled far, not by your feet, but by your consciousness. You have quietly crossed territories you once avoided. You have walked through pain, no longer seeing it as an enemy. You have sat with emotions, no longer letting them rule. You have looked at karma, no longer believing it is fate. You have seen relationships no longer as traps, but as teachers. You have learned forgiveness, not as sacrifice, but as release. You have entered sleep, not as escape, but as rest in awareness. You have walked mindfully, not as habit, but as return. And now you stand on the other side of pain, not because everything is healed, but because you have awakened within the pain. You have seen and stopped running. You have breathed and stopped resisting. You have touched yourself with a tenderness you long withheld. You are beginning to live not as the wounded one, but as the one who sees the wound and still walks with an open heart. You are slowly falling asleep now, but not as an ending, as a homecoming, back to the quiet gentleness within you, back to breath, to heart, to mindfulness, softly filling every cell. You don't need to understand everything. You don't need to be done to rest in peace. You only need to know tonight you are walking a path that leads home where peace is not a condition, but the way you are present with yourself. Thank you for walking with us and Buddhism seeds on this journey. Thank you for opening your heart, for listening, for the courage to look within. We trust that every thought you've quietly observed, every emotion you've stopped running from, is already creating a silent but real transformation. Before you close your eyes, if a word, an image, or a practice tonight has touched you, keep it as a small candle in your heart, and if you can share your reflection below. Sometimes your words can be the first light in someone else's night. If this journey brought you ease, please like, share, and subscribe to Buddhism Seeds. so we can meet again in the quiet nights ahead. Now take one last gentle breath. Let everything soften and whisper to yourself, I am safe to rest. I am not left behind. I am coming home. Sleep well and see you in the next silence.